Good evening and welcome to the F1Stop show. I'm your host Sam Oney, and with me tonight is Wes Spearman. Wes, how are you?
Yeah, not bad, thanks, Sam. An interesting race in Australia last weekend. I don't think one that, certainly not one that that we predicted in terms of the outcome. Um, but yeah, that's all I'll say for now. An interesting race, I suppose. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. You know, 3 races in now with Australia, and I must say, a lot has happened. A lot has happened in Australia. So let's get right into it. Um, where do we start? Let's start with the race win, and a new name was on the top step, down under. That's right. For now, oh, I
Hang
was
on,
going to
same country, same country.
say, same country, different driver.
Alonso has raced for Ferrari, not in a good
Um,
a good 10 years.
Carlos Sainz of Ferrari um was the winner down under. That's right. The Spaniard, on his return from medical leave after having his appendix removed, came back to Australia to win the race. And I must say that's one huge comeback, to come off from medical leave to win a race. That's extraordinary. How did you feel when hearing that?
I mean, if I'd had surgery and then 2 weeks later, however long it was, I think it's like 16 days or something later, I'm driving an F1. I mean, I'd still be in the hospital all the signs. I'd just be resting, not driving around at 200 miles an hour around the streets of Australia. It's an incredible achievement because, I mean, even the day after his surgery, he was walking around in Jeddah and he's like, just rest, get better, take care of yourself for crying out loud.
Yeah,
Um, they obviously had I think they did have a week off, didn't they, between the two Grand Prix? Um, but even so, for such a short turnaround in terms of like medical recovery, because that's a fully heal, it'll probably, I don't know how long it takes for an appendectomy to recover from. But it's certainly longer than 2 weeks, you'd have thought. I mean, I saw a post of him and Norris with their trophies, and you still Science has got all the dressings on his stomach and stuff. I just like you're driving an F1 car with the G forces involved, your organs have been shaken up all over the place, and it's incredible. I think really, and uh, the way you drove, I mean, a good result in qualifying, wasn't it? Qualified P2, 2 tenths or less than 2 tenths behind Verstappen. Again, fantastic result in qualifying, and then was there to pick up the pieces when Verstappen's brake decided to catch on fire in the first few laps. So yeah, a fantastic drive by Sainz, and people have got to be on the phone to him and his agent now, just being like, please drive for us next season because you got to remember this guy has no drive next year as things stand, and Ferrari let the wrong person go. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. It's still only 3 races into the season, but the way Sainz has started the season has been phenomenal, really. Yeah, he's obviously only driven in 2 races, but in those 2 races, he has just performed so incredibly well. And yeah, I think this weekend in Australia has got to go down as one of his best drives, if not his best drive throughout his career so far. Um, Obviously fantastic. I think led pretty much every lap, start to finish, from Verstappen's retirement 2 weeks on from a fairly major surgery. Yeah, a fantastic drive from Science, and I think David Croft said at the end of the race, I think he's the first driver since Gerhard Berger in 1997 to win on his comeback race from a medical absence,
yeah,
and
yeah.
that's a lot. That's a lot. That's nearly 30 years that
That's a
the last time
long,
that's happened.
long. Yeah, that's a long time. Very
Yeah,
long time.
so yeah, hats off to Carlos Sainz, and you can only hope is it's starting to get a few more phone calls of teams wanting him to drive for them this year.
Yeah, it sure is. So that's actually Carlos Sainz's third ever win in
Third win,
F1.
yeah.
So My question is to you, with Carlos Sainz's third win in F1 in Australia, can you name the two previous Grand Prix in which he has won races?
His first one was at Silverstone.
Yeah,
I can't remember exactly if it was like the British Grand Prix or the 70th anniversary, whatever they were calling it that weekend.
yeah, but it was
Was it in?
definitely
It
British
was
Grand
in
Prix. Yeah,
2020 or 2021. I can't remember which year.
I think
Um,
it was. I don't know what year, but I think it was the one that when Crofty said, "And through goes Hamilton,"
yeah, it
because I
was
know
that.
that was significant. Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know if that was the one where everyone's tires blew up at the end. It was one of the. It was that weekend or those.
yeah,
Yeah, it was at Silverstone anyway.
yeah,
Um, and I think his second one was at Singapore last year. Was it
yeah.
Singapore? It was a street track.
Singapore,
It
yeah,
was Singapore.
Singapore last year because
And I think
Verstappen had
on
won.
all three occasions, Russell has
Yeah.
crashed out at the end.
Say that again.
I think I saw that somewhere that Russell on each of Sainz's wins, Russell has crashed out towards the end of the race. I think I saw that. It's at least twice that that's happened. Obviously, Russell crashed out in this weekend in Australia and crashed out, I think, in Singapore. I don't know if he did it at Silverstone. Yeah, it's a weird coincidence that those two are somewhat connected.
That's very, very good coincidence. But yeah, for Ferrari, impressive weekend for them. Fantastic. More, more so because Charles Leclerc finished second. That's the first 1-2 for the Scuderia Ferrari since 2004, where Schumacher and oh,
We
who was the top
Barrichello,
one?
no four,
Say again?
must have been Barrichello, the number two at Ferrari then.
Yeah, I can't remember where, but it was definitely 2004. Um, but yeah, Ferrari won too. Again, fantastic race weekend for them.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't know if you were expecting me to speak then, but yeah, fantastic
So
weekend for Ferrari, as you say. Um, yeah, close the points, close the gap to Red Bull now in the constructors, only 4 points behind. Um, yeah, Leclerc again, also only 4 points behind Verstappen. Sainz 6 points off of Perez now as well. So yeah, really closed that gap. I mean, you could say if it wasn't for a bit of bad luck on Verstappen's part that he'd have probably won the race and been sitting over 25, 26 points. But that's the way motorsport goes. There is that unreliability factor. Um, and yeah, as I say, Ferrari were there to pick up the pieces, and yeah, a good result in qualifying put them both in good stead. Sainz and Leclerc. Leclerc started in fifth, made his way up to third. Not the best of drives from Perez. Finished a few places down on his starting position. Where did he finish? Fifth place, Perez, so down 2 places from his start. A good weekend for McLaren as well. 3 and 4 back-to-back P4s for Oscar Piastri. Arguably could have been a podium if McLaren didn't ask them to swap cars.
yeah,
It was quite
yeah.
late in the race. When was it? Well, I say late in the race. It was halfway through, lap 29. Um, yeah, I don't know how far behind did Norris finish behind Piastri. Let's have quite a while, 30 seconds. So you could say fair enough decision, I suppose, over the course of those 30 laps. If one's a second a lap quicker, then that yeah, the maths checks out. You could say. Um, yeah, overall, a good result. Yeah, good result for Ferrari, good result for McLaren, and yeah, a few not so good results, which I'm sure we'll come on to in just a second.
And yeah, speaking of Mercedes now, after the race, well, I think the big news out of Mercedes first is that both cars, Hamilton and Russell, DNF. Hamilton even said in after his in a post race interview, I think he said it's his what 2024 his worst start to a season, worst start to the season. I think since 2009. But it's just not going well for the Silver Arrows. It's not going well at all. Um, what do you think is the problem there?
I don't really, they haven't seemed to recover since the new regulations were in place since what, 2022. They've got one win in two and a bit years now, that being Russell in Brazil. Hamilton's winless in over 800 days, I think I saw. Um, yeah, it's just not going well for Mercedes, and it's probably going to stay in this sort of similar sort of fashion until the new regs coming in 2026. So we've got another couple of years for Mercedes to try and bounce back to the way they were a few years ago. Yeah, they've just not got the hang of these new regulations, these new cars. And other teams have, the likes of Red Bull, Ferrari, McLaren, Aston Martin have all overtaken them or are now at the same level. Um, I mean, the quality of the drivers is unquestionable. I mean, Hamilton, Russell, two of the best drivers on the grid without a shadow of a doubt. But for some reason, yeah, they're just not performing. And is it the car? Is it the drivers to some extent? Is Hamilton, dare I say, past it, if I can even say that? Is Russell capable of driving that Mercedes? I think he is, and Hamilton's one of the greatest drivers, or arguably the greatest driver in Formula One history. So the caliber of driver is there, but the car just isn't as good as what it was. It's not as good as Red Bulls. It's not as good as Ferraris, and at the moment, not as good as the McLarens either. Um, yeah, fourth in the constructors, only 1 point ahead of Aston Martin, who use a pretty similar sort of base, I think. Um, and yeah, pretty much got uh, half the points of the McLaren now. Um, so yeah, not a good start for the season for Mercedes, and yeah, they have to figure out the problems pretty quickly if they want to challenge McLaren for podiums for that third place in the constructor, challenge Ferrari, who knows? But yeah, at the moment, I'm not seeing Mercedes getting on the podium, or I could probably see them getting a podium at some point this season, but not a race win at the moment. It's going to be another win this season for Mercedes, I think, coming up.
I think the key word you said there um, is regulations. Changing of the rules and the car setups because, like you said, you know the regulations Mercedes probably just them, and it all started with the porpoising or bouncing, as some of us used to um, know it as, and yeah, it is disappointing to see it, but it has kind of created like the likes for Aston Martin and Miss McLaren, to progress a lot because in those what in those 2 years, I think McLaren have progressed the most, if you think about it, because
Yeah,
sure they're not
100%.
on the same level as Red Bull, but in terms of like race results, they've got a few podiums and they could really challenge for a race win. I really
Like,
think so.
yeah. Yeah, McLaren, I mean, they obviously got the race win with Danny Ricciardo. I think that was 2021 as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, Norris and Piastri just seem like such a good duo, and such a good fit for the team as well. I can't see McLaren getting rid of any one or either of them anytime soon. And I think they'll be on the grid for yeah a good number of years, with McLaren as well. Yeah, the way they've sort of res resurged, they have their resurgence, about quite a way to phrase it. Since pretty much in like the last 8 to 10 years, when we're down and out with the Honda engines finishing back of the pack, um, improved a bit with the Renault engines. Now they're back to Mercedes engines. Yeah, they're back to, I wouldn't say back to where they were, winning races. Um, but yeah, we're seeing Norris on the podium more and more. We're seeing Piastri get into those top fives. As I said earlier, back-to-back P4s for Oscar Piastri. Um, and yeah, I mean, I'm smiling as a McLaren fan, thinking, oh, they're doing pretty well. It's great to see them doing well. Yeah, as you say, if you do well at the regulation changes, all you do, and yeah, McLaren have got to grips with the regulation more than some of the other teams. One of those being Mercedes.
And just before we move on to the last bit of action that happened in Australia, with Hamilton moving to Ferrari in 2025, do you think he will experience car issues with Ferrari, or it will be plain sailing and we're gonna see him and Charles Leclerc, you know, challenge for the drivers' championship alongside Verstappen in the Red Bull?
I think we'll still have issues to some extent. I think every team has some sort of mechanical failure along the season. Now, obviously, Verstappen's been a bit lucky with Red Bull. I think he's gone 43 races without a retirement. I think his last retired, you might have mentioned earlier, Australia 2022. So a good, well, almost exactly 2 years since he last retired from Grand Prix. Um, yeah, I mean, he's got 1 year with Ferrari before new regulations come into place.
Mhm.
And you'd like to think that in that 1 year he can win a few races for the Scuderia. I mean, they've shown that Ferrari have shown that they can do that this season. Obviously, Sainz this weekend and Sainz again the last couple of years, and obviously Leclerc before that. But yeah, whether we'll have the same sort of issues as Mercedes, we'll just have to wait and see. I mean, what those new regulations in 2026 do to shake up the grid a little bit. I mean, when he was with, like I say, when he was with Mercedes, he was with Mercedes, but when Mercedes in their heyday, when he was winning all the championships, the only sort of main mechanical failure that comes to mind is when his engine caught fire in Malaysia, 2016, when Rosberg won the championship. Um, that's the only real mechanical failure I can think of that comes to mind when I think of Hamilton and Mercedes. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, as I say, for whatever reason, Mercedes just haven't got it right. Ferrari, McLaren, obviously Red Bull have got it right by quite some margin. Yeah, I mean, I hope Hamilton gets back to sort of those regular top fives, regular podiums, and semi-regular race wins when he's with Ferrari next season. But how long will that last? Given it's only a year from next season into the new regulations and Audi join the grid, and yeah, who knows what's going to happen to shake things up in 2026.
Who knows? Yeah, so much, and there's still a long season to go. There's still a long way to go in the season. That's the scary part. We all think everything's happened in Australia, but there's still what 20, just over 20 races to go. Um, and the last bit that happened in Australia was George Russell. He again, the second Mercedes driver to not finish the race, but it was a horrible crash for the British driver, and as a result of that, Fernando Alonso was the culprit, if you like. I don't really like that word, culprit, because he was hit with a 20-second penalty. What were your views when seeing that on the highlights and hearing, the Spaniard had been hit with a 20-second penalty? And do you think it was justified?
No, I don't think it was justified. First and foremost, there wasn't any contact between Russell and Alonso. I think from what I've heard, it sounds like that Alonso basically braked earlier than you would normally expect.
Mm,
Um, but in a way, that's racing. You can't expect someone to hit the mark every single time. There's a bit of well, it's tactics, isn't it? If you brake earlier, get a better exit on the corner, you overtake them at the end of the next corner, as I say. Yeah, Alonso I think, was just trying to do that and getting a 20-second penalty for sort of, I wouldn't say gamesmanship because it's more than gamesmanship. It's just racecraft, it's tactics from Alonso. And when there
Yeah,
was no contact between the two either, it seems a bit. I don't really understand why they've given Alonso a 20-second penalty. That's quite a big penalty as well.
yeah,
If it was something lesser, like 5 second, 10 second, what have you, I think would be more justified. But yeah, I mean, for Alonso to get a penalty in the first place, I can't see where that's come from. Um, but yeah, I guess it is what it is. I mean, we've seen a few dubious penalties been given out the last few years,
mm,
um, and there'll be loads more dubious penalties to come, I'm sure. But yeah, as for Alonso getting that penalty, yeah, as I say, not 100% sure why Alonso was given that penalty, given I don't think he caused the incident. I think that was just Russell not expecting Alonso to do something, and in a sort of way you have
yeah,
to expect the unexpected. There's 2 laps to go. They're battling for what, fifth, sixth place, whatever it was. There's going to be some tactics, some racecraft at play, and obviously Alonso with a much more experienced head than Russell deployed his or used his experience, his racecraft to do something that he thought would give him an advantage later on in the lap, later on in for the remainder of the race. So yeah, as I keep saying, I can't see why Alonso got that penalty, and I don't know whether him and Aston Martin are going to appeal it, but anyway, he still got points at the end of the day, I suppose. But yeah, I don't know why he got that penalty. Glad Russell is okay though. That's the main thing because that was quite
that's the
a scary
important thing.
situation at one point when he was in the middle of the track, and I don't know if you heard the radio. I don't think it was played out the on the broadcast, but I've seen or heard recently that he was quite scared to just be sitting there in the literally in the middle of an active racetrack with
Yeah,
cars coming past at 100, 150 miles an hour, and he was just shouting for it to be a red flag. And I know Martin Brundle on the Sky commentary said it should have been a red flag, and instead it was a VSC. Yes, there was only one racing lap to go, but you got to drive this literally a sitting duck in the middle of the track. You can't really get out in case the car goes flying past. And yeah, you got a car in the middle of the track, so anyone could just plow into it. So yeah, a scary situation for Russell, and yeah, just glad he's okay after that.
yeah. That's the most important thing. Um, we've not got long, but we've summed up Australia for pretty much the whole weekend. Um, I just want to go back. I just want to go back to Carlos Sainz because it's his weekend, and you mentioned something very important that he's got no drive for 2025. So, what do you think he's gonna do? Do you think he? Do you think he? You know, goes to another sport for just one season and then comes back in 26, or does he wait on the waiting list and see if there's any driver shakeups? You know, because again, Mercedes are without a driver for 25. There could be talk of him going to Aston Martin or another team. So where do you think he's gonna go?
I just hope it's in a good team. I don't want him to stay like Sainz battling for the midfield um, in a Haas and Alpine and Aston Martin because he deserves better than that. I think Sainz. He's worked his way up from the
Mm,
back of the pack with Toro Rosso into McLaren, Renault, and now Ferrari. So he's worked his way up. He's done his time in the back markers in the midfield and is now, as we've seen, fighting for race wins and winning races. So he deserves a good car. Whether he'll get that, I'm not sure because, as we say, that Mercedes seat is open and there are a few other drivers that I think Mercedes will probably look at. The likes of Ocon, former Mercedes junior driver, Mick Schumacher, an outside chance. Um, Albon maybe, and of course Sainz. And you'd like to think Sainz is at the front of the pecking order, but you never know with F1. We do call it silly season for a reason, I suppose. Yeah, you mentioned whether he'll get involved in other motorsports. I think that'd be quite good to see whether he goes to his dad did rallying, so whether we'll see him in a WRC car, who knows?
Oh yeah,
Um, or
like father, like
at the Dakar
son.
Rally for Extreme E, who knows? I think that'd be good to see. I think there's a science team in Extreme E. Or his dad was like one of the mentors in Extreme E, so who knows? He could do that for a year. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I just hope Science gets a drive or a drive at a seat at the very least, but a good
Yeah,
drive. And really, that only is going to be Mercedes. I don't see McLaren letting go, as I mentioned, letting one of Norris or Piastri go. So yeah, it really is only going to be at Mercedes. So Toto Wolff, over to you.
indeed.
Pick up the phone, Toto.
Yeah. So that only leaves one question then. Um, how do you rate the race out of 10, Australia, after everything that's happened? Because
I don't know, a lot
yeah,
seemed to
go
happen
on.
in Australia, but also not a lot at all. Because obviously you have Verstappen retire early on, you had the crash with Russell at the end, but there weren't that many overtakes, I don't think.
Mm,
I mean, the Sky highlights seemed to whiz through sort of middle chunk of the race. I don't have many sort of notes at all from pretty much lap 10 to lap 57. Not a lot really happened in the middle of it. Whereas in the last two races, yeah, they've been a bit boring because it's Verstappen pole, Verstappen win, Verstappen fastest lap, what have you. There were at least a few battles in the midfield that we can look at and go, oh, that's quite entertaining. But there wasn't really that this weekend. There were a couple, but none of the moves really stuck. So, I mean, love the result, love the race winner, love, yeah, that it's not a Verstappen win again. It's a change to the podium. But overall, I have to say, I don't think the race was actually that entertaining. So I'm going to have to give it a 4 out of 10 because there weren't really many battles, and that's what makes races entertaining. You want battles to the lead, you want battles for the podiums, you want the teams scrapping it out for the last few points. And Australia sadly just didn't have that.
mm, okay, I can see that. I can see where you're coming from. Um, yeah, I thought other than the Verstappen, DNF retirement, and Hamilton and Russell as well not finishing the race, nothing really happened. Uh, it was great. It was great to see McLaren with a strong finish. Carlos Sainz, the star man, winning the race on his comeback from surgery. But there wasn't really a lot of action yeah, like you mentioned. So I'm gonna give it maybe a 4 out of 10, like you said. You know, but yeah, I think that's about that. So, sorry, yeah, that's about that. We've come to the end of another episode. The next race is in Japan, and I think that's not for a couple of weeks, maybe the start of April, or maybe maybe the early weekend in
Yeah, I
April.
think there's a week break this weekend, isn't there? And then I think that,
Yeah,
yeah, it feels weird to have Suzuka this early on in the season. But when I
yeah.
think Suzuka, it's towards the back end of the season, so it's weird to
Mhm.
have it as what, round four in the calendar. Um, yeah, as we mentioned before, makes sense logistically. It's the same hemisphere, I suppose, in the Eastern Hemisphere. So
Mhm.
yeah, it makes sense.
And yeah, so we hope you've enjoyed this episode of F1 Stop Show. I've been your host, Sam Oni, and there's a goodbye from me. Bye bye. And there's a goodbye from Wes.
Bye bye.
And we'll see you next time.